There are two ways to get rich on Wall Street. You can be smart or you can be stubborn. And history has shown that being stubborn usually pays better. We call it diamond handing, the refusal to sell no matter how red the chart gets. It turned one trader's $160,000 into $2.5 million over 17 years. But it also turned another guy's retirement fund into, well, a shift at Wendy's. Today, we are looking at the good, the bad, and the absolute ugly of holding forever. From the NVIDIA millionaire who held since before many of you were born, to the guy who watched $100,000 burn to zero because he refused to click sell. Let's see whose diamond hands are getting chopped off and whose are getting rewarded. And ape to ape real quick, this is obviously not financial advice. First, we will meet PT Fire Throwaway, obviously a throwaway account, but not a throwaway story. PT Fire has been holding NVIDIA since 2008. Back then, Obama was just newly elected, Windows XP was the world's most popular operating system, and the New York Giants were actually kind of good. NVIDIA was a penny stock trading at 27 cents back then, and while everyone else was panic selling the Great Recession, this guy was buying and hoarding. And because he held for 17 years, his $160,000 investment is now worth $2.5 million. OP certainly got a discussion rolling in Wall Street Bets. One commenter actually claimed that his gain was not that impressive because a simple investment in QQQ would have resulted in just about the same yield. But this is not actually the case. It's actually that DCAing into NVIDIA over 17 years matched QQQ's returns had he put a lump sum in from the start, which is very impressive. Others began discussing what the next NVIDIA might be, and still others were just, well, happy for him. And while OP did not detail any retirement plans, he did mention that he would be buying some ASTS at the next market open. 17 years is by far a diamond hands record on the Wall Street Bets subreddit. Have you seriously seen anyone hold for more than a few months on there? Next up, we'll meet Trent Cool Yak. He joined Reddit 12 years ago, and he started by asking the pressing question, why do humans age? Since then, he's been playing Hearthstone, League of Legends, Sword and Supper. Seriously, I don't know how they come up with some of these game names, but 1 month ago, Trent finally took to the Wall Street Bets subreddit to exclaim, Google Leap Mafia, where you at? It shows he is loaded up to his balls with leaps spreading all the way out to 2027. He didn't just bet on Google, he bet his entire future on it. I'm not sure if this is what they mean by diversification, but there's no way I can snark on his results. Just in this first post, he's up $371,000. But OP's story got even better. It shows that he made $90K in a single day on October 27th. We also got a bit more insight into OP's diversification strategy, as he writes that the varying expirations and strike prices reflected his conviction that Google would rise, he just didn't know when. On November 3rd, OP came back to show us that the same options that were previously up $371K were now up over $600,000. I won't read the entire DD, but the gist of it is that even if AI is a bubble, Google has a lot going for it not related to AI, putting up Jokic-style numbers regardless. And of course, if AI is a bubble and those who control AI will end up controlling the world, then Google is the most primed company out there to take this on. The TLDR, I'm not selling. OP's goal was revealed in the comments. He wanted $1 million in profit or bust until he's held the leaps for at least 1 year. A precise number indeed. In the interim between posts, Trent thanked Jensen Huang of NVIDIA for Google's aftermarket soar back to $300 per share after briefly dipping below, and then most recently, OP came back to Wall Street Bets to let us know that he was, quote, very sad to report that he'd sold his December 19 $300 strike price calls that he had bought in February. This was an exercise in diamond hands indeed, holding through Liberation Day, the flash crash in April. Imagine holding contracts that were up $300,000, watching them bleed out to almost nothing in April, and having everyone tell you, I told you so. That is the hardest part of diamond handing, not the loss, but the noise. And it paid off greatly. His cost basis was $3,800 for 40 contracts, and he just sold for $92,000. I could sense a bit of spite in his tone as he remarks, I want to have it on the record that everyone who called me an idiot for holding on to these when Google was $285 last month. At the end of the day, OP was one of the luckiest of the regards, and someone on the Theta Gang end of this deal is not happy. Trent held through the crash, everyone called him an idiot, and he sold for a massive profit despite them. But not everyone had the diamond hand Google options through tariff turmoil and hold for nearly a year just to print tendies. User TommyBoy441 is no stranger to making bank or YOLOing into regarded positions, with massive wins on MU calls, AVGO calls, and RXRX calls. Then OP won some fantasy football bets for $2,400 and threw that into his account as well, rolled into some Palantir puts, writing, me likey. And around Labor Day, OP full ported into Google calls. He exclaimed with glee, Sundar is my daddy, referring of course to Google's CEO Sundar Pichai. The screenshot shows that on September 3rd, OP bought 30 contracts of Google $250 strike price calls expiring in mid-2026. Compared to our last case study, these calls are a bit more in the money, enough to bring the total percentage down to about 300% from the last case study, which was closer to 1,000%, but still, turning $62K into $250,000 is nothing to laugh at. OP was up about $400K through the month of November alone, with no plans to sell Google. Despite gaining 87% in just the past 6 months, it seems that the Google holders are convinced they've got a ways further to go to the moon. I've shown a couple of traders here who got rewarded for their diamond hands, but what about those who paper-handed Google? How are they feeling? Long time no see for Dry General 990. I just covered his bloodbath of a portfolio in Poet and Meta shares 2 weeks ago in our Thanksgiving episode. He's not doing well. I can hear the quake in his voice. Sold $128,000 worth of Google for $192,000. All of Reddit said that ChatGPT would make search engines obsolete. Google would lose their lawsuit. Google never commits to their projects and squashes them to start new ones all the time. No one watches ads and the revenue will dry up. F me for listening. If I held, my account would have 210K in it right now. Instead, I FOMO'd into NBIS and I ran at the top. Don't forget about your Poet and Meta losses too. And now I have less than 107K, with a clown emoji to top it off. Like one commenter pointed out, it's not that he sold Google, it's more about what he did with the money. If you're enjoying the content so far, like, subscribe, and most importantly, join the Gigastonks Discord server. We win some, we lose some, and you'll enjoy vibing out with the fellow apes. We've seen what happens when diamond hands work. Now let's see what happens when you diamond hand a grenade. WAD100 has a Microstrategy to match his micro PP. His story went from good to bad to ugly really quick. It started with BITF calls that were actually up over 1,000%. OP quickly turned 3K into 43K, but unfortunately never told us if he sold. On September 25th, WAD had a new crypto-related strategy as he threw $70,000 into MicroStrategy calls with a strike price of $340. At the time of his purchase, MicroStrategy was around $300 per share, and it actually jumped up pretty quickly. By October 6th, it was sitting close to $360, so now WAD's calls were well in the money. But by October 12th, there were some cracks that led to the massive crypto sell-off this fall, and MicroStrategy was no exception to this bearish trend, dropping immediately to $315. OP's calls were now worth only 61K, or about 12% down. Should I be worried, he asks? I'm very bullish on MicroStrategy. WallStreetBets was surprisingly not concerned about these calls decaying further and gave him the nod of approval to keep on holding. And hold he did. Actually, he doubled down the next day, now holding 30 contracts or about $100,000 invested in the MicroStrategy calls, and things started to go well for him. Oh, never mind, I just had the chart upside down. 1 month later, on November 11th, OP writes that he needs a miracle, with MicroStrategy priced that day at $231. The stock was taking a beating, and the calls were doing that much worse. OP's 100K investment was now worth just $13,000. When asked, how does OP sleep at night, he exclaimed, under a bridge. Surely it couldn't get any worse, could it? OP returned just last week to write that he is indeed cooked. Now down to his final $3,000 and still holding, OP diamond handed himself straight to the grave, or to right behind the McDonald's counter. I want some extra salt on my fries, bro. It's always clear what's best to do in hindsight, whether to cut losses on positions or hold them en route to Valhalla, but sometimes the best choice isn't always clear in the middle of the turmoil. That's exactly what user JChan5864 is going through. This guy aped into 16 contracts of $700 Meta calls on Halloween, right back after its massive drop-off, betting on a quick comeback. And while Meta did make its way back up, it wasn't nearly quick enough. By November 6th, just a week into holding, OP's 30K gamble shrunk to just under $14,000 in value. He asks desperately, take losses now or hold out? And WallStreetBets had mixed advice, from one commenter reminding him that he did have time, to another compelling him to freak the fuck out and panic sell everything. So you might wonder, what would I do in this situation? And the answer is, I have no clue. OP is kinda up a creek with these calls. His last Reddit activity is on November 15th, and he was still holding despite being down 82%. I had to check the call prices myself quickly, and if OP is still holding, he's now down around 90%, with a very high likelihood the delta is around 10, so that means that almost definitely they're going to be expiring worthless. I'd like to close on a hopeful note, and that's what we'll get here from Mountain Stake 544, who purchased 180 shares of Micron Technology back in June when it was trading around $127 per share. You can see here on the stock chart that there was quite a bit of pain before there was any gain. OP was sure feeling it. In the summer, his 23K position had dwindled to just $16,000, but through the rest of the summer and fall, Micron had quite the run, and OP was able to watch his $23,000 investment bounce back from 16K past his entry all the way up to $43,000. I still have some questions like, did he sell, especially considering the position is 92% of his portfolio? And also, I wonder how much he would have been worth had he bought calls instead of shares. I feel like there's something inherently honorable about being diamond-handed. Not to get too philosophical or anything, but it shows what kind of man you are. Do you run off the battlefield at the first sign of blood or a paper cut? Or do you decide, you know what, I might get beheaded today in the battle, but I'm going to stay in the fight for the chance of glory, even if that chance is just 1%. I'd like to think that the greatest fighters and generals of our species, from Genghis Khan to George Washington, would have held their positions to zero, as regarded as it sounds. I like to think of Alexander the Great not using stop losses and leveraging the entire Macedonian GDP into zero data expiration spy calls and either conquer the known world or end up working behind the Wendy's in Babylon or something. That is the diamond-handed way. Stay bullish, like and subscribe and all that good stuff, and I'll see you on the moon.